credible advice on how to build globally impactful careers. And I don't want to announce the headline speaker just yet, but you really want to sign up. So the way to sign up will be to go on Instagram to a page on Instagram called youthatthetable.gh, which is an initiative I started when I started this role, and sign up with the link, the Google form in the link, and keep your eyes peeled for surprises.
Thank you for that. Before I go to Katra, just to let the audience know that I'm open for questions as well. I want to make this very interactive as much as possible, and I'm going to be going on to the questions that's online as well that people are posting. So please, if you do have a question, please put your hand up and somebody will come and bring you a mic. Katria, Jake mentioned about, the diaspora is not just about investment, it's about mentorship. What other forms of things can we give? Apart from mentorship and investment, what do you think are the tools that the diasporan can bring to the African continent?
Thank you very much. Thank you for that question, and thank you to all my colleagues. First and foremost, as an East African whose first time it is in Ghana, I must acknowledge that this is truly the heart of the world, as your president said. We're in the middle of the Black Star, and it's so bright. And I must acknowledge that so much progress has been made over the past 60 years. There have been several crucible moments, right from 1958, when the All Africa People's Conference happened here in Accra. And one of our esteemed Kenyans, the late Tom Mboya, said it was time for the colonial forces to scram from Africa, having scrambled for our resources in 1884 in Berlin. And further to that, of course, we had the Casablanca Conference in 1961, hosted by the late King Mohammed V, and it convened heads of state who believed that Africa deserved political federation beyond economic and social emancipation. And then, of course, there was a Monrovia bloc, which also blended together to create the ideology that was the foundation of the Organization for African Unity. And that brings us all the way forward to 2014, when the last Pan-African Congress was held here in Accra. And thus, 7 years later, to be here at the KUSI Ideas Festival, it truly is a full circle moment for me, and I'm so honored to be here. Regarding tools that the diaspora can deploy in advancing their influence, not just on the continent, but around the world, we must take note of the investment that the diaspora have made in the countries that they have found themselves in. Whether they went as victims of the transatlantic slave trade or went as immigrants seeking greener pastures, it is a fact that the African diaspora is a hard worker, is someone who has built the nations in which those nations have been fortunate to have them present in. These are people who are committed to building back home. And to your question about ATMs, I think we must credit the diaspora for the remittances that they send back home every year. And not just Christmas, which I wish I could spend in Ghana, but next time. Another tool that I would say, finally, that the diaspora needs to bring into consideration. Many years ago, 1400s, Portuguese explorers sailed around the African continent seeking a way to get to the East Coast. And they were swept around the Cape of Good Hope, which is what they called South Africa at the time, because they were able to cross it. And Vasco da Gama made it all the way to East Africa. And there he set up the fort of Fort Jesus, and the equivalent on the west is Elmina Castle. And I would say that if these people in the 1400s could come and establish forts to fortify their interests, to protect their agendas, to secure their trade, I would say to our diaspora, come home whenever you want. As my brother said here, come home whenever you want, but wherever you are, take the time to create forts of your own. Create physical forts, digital forts, social forts, political forts. Let us expand our influence beyond, the cliche contributions that have been hitherto. And the reason I would like to emphasize digital forts most of all is because the digital realm, that is where we are most vulnerable, I feel. That is the next frontier for imperialism. And if we do not man up and warrior up and arm up, we run the risk of becoming digitally colonized. And so I call upon us all to become digital warriors for Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a question from the audience before I go on to my next question? Anybody so far? No? That means it's going very well. Awesome. Akwasi, we've had a lot of people come in last 2019 as part of the year of return. And one of the main things that people were requesting was citizenship. What are we doing about that as Ghana? And how do you feel about, African Americans, people in the diaspora, now wanting to come home and wanting to have citizenship in the country?
All right, thank you. It feels good that after so many years, we've all come to the realization that we have to connect. And so the fact that people are looking for citizenship, not just in Ghana, you see it happening in Sierra Leone, in Gabon, in Nigeria, other places are coming back and saying, we are part of you, give us citizenship is a good thing. But I think it's not just about citizenship. It's about the conversations that we need to have on how we connect and the roadmap. And that is why in Ghana, we started this Homeland Return bill, which is currently going through some stakeholder engagements. Because throughout the year of return, like Jake said, the Office of Diaspora Affairs, Ministry of Interior, Foreign Affairs, everybody was at the table. And the feedback we got was not just people coming and talking about tourist sites. People really wanted to connect in so many ways. And so if you take investments, how do we make sure that we streamline the investment processes so that when you talk about a diaspora investment, it's different from foreign direct investment, for example. You know that this is an African coming back to invest. And he's from here, he's part of the motherland. So those things are part of the things that have led to what we call the Homeland Return Act, which is to say, let's sanitize everything to do with diaspora engagement. So although there's a diaspora engagement policy that the Office of Diaspora Affairs is working out, I believe once we have the Homeland Return Bill turned into an act eventually, that will seek to streamline everything around citizenship, right of a vote, investment, everything will be in that one piece. And more importantly, we also look at the Diaspora Pathway. I mean, a lot of people who have come here, over the week, for example, we met a group from Barbados and New York who were here. They say, we love your beautiful country, but it's so difficult to get a visa to come to Ghana. Why is it so difficult for Africans in the diaspora to come back to the motherland if you're inviting them? So the Diaspora Pathway, in terms of things like e-visa and all that, will all be part of what the Homeland Return Act will seek to address. And so I think we are getting there.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to jump over to a question online by Jacob. He says, how are African leaders planning to deal with the economic challenges after this COVID-19 effect? Does anybody want to take that question? And the fact that also Ghana just yesterday or this morning announced that, if you're coming into the country, if you're not fully vaccinated, you will be vaccinated at the airport. Is that correct, Akwasi?
Yeah. That's not a bad thing, though, because we need the numbers. We also need to, like our president always says, let's protect our lives first and before our livelihoods. And so in most cities in the United States now, without a vaccination card, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't go anywhere. So we need to make sure that people are protected, because definitely there's another wave going around, and we need to make sure that people coming in are safe and the citizens of the country are also safe. But I think if you take the whole thing of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, that really is a pivot or the fulcrum around which a lot of these economic benefits or economic engagements will happen. Because now, when you come into Ghana, you're not just dealing with a 30 or 32 million population. You have the entire continent of 1+ billion people to do. So that's a bigger market for you. And since the signing of this AFCT, you've seen an increase in, for example, even in Ghana, the number of vehicle assembly plants that have sprung up over the last few years. People think that, oh, they're not just looking at Ghana, they're looking at the entire market, because now you come in here, you produce from here. Nigeria is a bigger market for you. Cote d'Ivoire is next door, Burkina Faso, and it goes on and on. Same thing, I think Kenya will also start seeing the benefits. In arts and in culture, it can also go there. So I think it's this free trade agreement and the fact that it's hosted here in Ghana gives us a very good competitive advantage in driving that conversation of economic cooperation among African countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question that Jacob has put here is that, can African countries come together and work as a team in order to promote business together? Let them stamp out issues to do with visa rules for all Africans to move freely within our African borders. Do you think that this will ever happen? You know, a visa-free, you can go to Nigeria, visa-free, you can go to South Africa, visa-free. Do you see this happening on the continent?
Yes, it's happening already. If you catch a flight anywhere, you will find it full of African people, black people going to South Africa, going to Kenya, going to Uganda. So it's happening already. And I always like to speak about the present rather than the future, because every minute is the future of the minute before that. So I think we focus too far sometimes into the distance. I'm a literary person, and we've seen just the movement of literature across the continent. And also we've seen music since I was born a long time ago. We had all those musicians, Fela Kuti, you know, we know them. You know, I won't mention others in case I get into trouble. So it's happening, and it's happening digitally. People are very aware of what's happening, and we're more African. But I do want to sell my big point that we need a common language. This is really important, and the United Nations actually adopted Kiswahili as an international language on the 7th of July. Every year, Kiswahili will be celebrated globally. And it does make me a little bit sad that we, in Africa, have not adopted a common language. Everybody else has their own language. So because we're so many nations, and because we have so many languages, we can't keep postponing this question about Kiswahili. So I urge you all to learn Kiswahili, and I'll quickly tell you a story. I grew up in post-colonial Kenya, and we were punished for speaking our languages after independence. And people to this day will tell you they don't speak their mother tongues in Ghana, in Nigeria, everywhere. So we need a common platform, as my sister says. We need these barriers and fortresses. And our languages are that everybody in the world is learning Kiswahili but us. Go on any platform online, you'll see the whole world is learning Kiswahili, and we're going to be left behind. So those economic gains that you're speaking about, other people will be able to access them because they can speak our languages. So we have to be very careful. Through languages come values, the values I spoke about at the beginning. And I'm a bit of an academic, so I want to introduce this idea of an epistemological future, common to all Africans. And this concept of Ubuntu, which many of us think is South African, is actually a global African phenomenon where we care about each other. We are one of the few continents that's left where caring for the other is a key plank of our wealth. The remittances we are talking about is about this duty of care for one another, and it is a gold mine. A gold mine here in Ghana, everywhere. We care for one another. So we need to harness Ubuntu as a common value for all Africans. That's how people survived slavery, through this epistemological idea of oneness. Along with that goes everything else. And you know very well that African American people have introduced this idea of Kwanzaa. And it comes with these values, a value system of self-reliance and so forth and so on. And it's not a foreign concept. It came from here. So languages are very important. So it is my privilege, I hope, and I excuse myself to our political representatives who are here, just to announce that the African Union finally has adopted an African Languages Week, which is in January. And I hope that we will all celebrate this wherever we are. And with that, I will say, Midase.
Midase. Jake, you know, we see young people are getting more excited about Africa, okay? And we get even more excited when we see collaborations with, you know, Beyonce and Shatta Wale's being featured with Beyonce. Or we see Wizkid filling out the O2. Is it now that the world is seeing Africa, or has Africa always been like that? And it's now that we are being put on the platform. Why are we so excited when we see these collaborations and we see that, you know, all of these big African artists in the diaspora are raising the flag and are doing extraordinary things?
That's a great question. I think it's fundamentally, it's as a result of us celebrating ourselves first, I believe. I think growing up, I grew up in Ghana, and growing up in Ghana, we enjoyed hip-hop and hip life, but we would play more hip-hop when we went out. We would enjoy hip life more at home or more casually, but hip-hop was the thing coming from America. That's what the influence was. And there came a point, I guess, when our music and all our cultural exports, the quality got better, and we also just got more conscious, and we started celebrating that on our own. That was way before the world discovered these things. We actually made the world discover these things, in my opinion. I remember in university in New York when Azunto was playing at a party, and somebody asked, "What is this?" And I had to sit the person and educate them for probably like 10 minutes about what this music is. Now everybody worldwide knows what Afrobeats is, what Amapiano is, and it's just taking over the world. But it's really because us as young Africans have owned it for ourselves. The world today and the attention of the world goes on, it's basically based on metrics and numbers. So the more we celebrate what is ours, the more attention will be drawn to it. And that is why, even for example, look at Ghana. In 2 years, the global perception of Ghana, nightlife in Ghana, entertainment in Ghana, tourism in Ghana, music in Ghana has changed drastically. Why? Because Ghanaian young people, most of all, fight me if you think that's not true. I'm ready. Ghanaian young people upheld our country at a point where the world is like, what do you guys have to offer? So I'm very passionate about that, and I'm very passionate about us continuing to lift our flag and shine our black star, because it's working. It's really working in the world where now people understand the value of the black dollar, the value of the black whatever currency, instead of whatever currency. The value of black people's money. And Africa is not lost in that conversation, because we have accepted our consciousness as black Africans, and we are celebrating the things that emanate from us, and looking at how we can collaborate. It's actually very beautiful to see how in this era of diaspora affairs we have a Beyonce and Shatta Wale collaboration. That is Black America and Black Africa merging. This is the way in which it's permeating every system we are operating in. This is not a bilateral conversation anymore, or a historical conversation anymore of black people in the diaspora wanting to connect to content. Now it's mainstream. It's everyday culture. It's not even shocking anymore to hear that who is in Ghana? Anybody is in Ghana because it's the thing. They're going to, and everybody knows that once people touch Ghana, they want to touch the rest of the continent. The people are planning concerts for Ghana and Nigeria as if they are the same country. And now we have Amapiano also from Southern Africa moving into center stage, and it's just really showing that when African youth, Black African youth, uphold what we have, and we show the rest of the world what we have, not for them to accept us, but to show that this is what we are doing, they have no other choice but to respond with the kind of collaborations that will give us the global acclaim that we're all looking for.
Fantastic, thank you. Actually, I'm going to direct this question to you because you are wearing your African print, right?
Yes.
This is East African, this is Kenya.
Actually, this is Ghanaian.
This is Ghanaian.
The colors. So this is Pan-African.
Is this Kente in the middle?
This is absolutely Kente. And I want to give a shout out to the stall in the back because I saw it and I couldn't resist. So thank you.
Fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, so my question was, do you think that we are getting more confident now wearing our own print? You know, the Kente is a huge thing in Ghana, right? And for me, I feel like we need to do more when it comes to our print. But do you think that we're now feeling more confident as diasporans to be wearing our Africanness?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that Pan-Africanism as a consciousness has taken root, not just on the continent, but in the diaspora as well. People are proud to be associated with the continent. There's, you see it from movies in Hollywood, Wakanda Forever. You see it with social movements, people who are aware of the challenges, historical challenges that the Black man has faced and worked so hard to overcome. And so the Black man, and the reason we celebrate Beyonce and Shatta Wale and all the collaborations that are happening is because the African has ceased to be a peripheral actor on the global stage. He is front and center, receiving Oscars, receiving Grammys, being nominated. He's an outstanding performer in all spheres of world of life. You have Olympians, you have historians, you have Nobel laureates, you have them all in all these spheres. And so Black excellence is finally becoming normalized. We're not becoming icons. It's normal to be excellent. I'm African, I'm excellent. Thank you.
Woo, love that. Prof, do you think the film Black Panther changed the perception of Africa? Do you think it made an impact on how people viewed Africa?
I believe so. But just a word of warning, these things are cyclical. We've been here, seen that, done that, the older people. And it can be blown away, as you saw with the killing of George Floyd. Can be blown away in one day. So it's to protect it, as you have rightly said, and to be conscious that we are coming out of colonialism. I'm sure you've heard this big word, decolonizing. It's the big thing out there. But for us, really, and I tell people I'm not on the decolonizing train. I'm on a liberatory train. Our journey started only 60 years ago, and we have a long way to go with our languages, with our dress, with our food, with how we love each other. We have scars of pain and hatred, which we have to heal. They're not our wounds, they are wounds imposed on us by others. So I think we just have to stay on track and to continue to visualize this wonderful future. And I'm sure, as an older person on this panel, you are because we are. You are because we are. And in this country, I remember as a child seeing the president of this country, Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, and other leaders. It was normal to have this Pan-African family for me, growing up as a child. So we have to protect this. And I think this continental free trade area and bringing home our relatives who were unfortunately taken away, for them to feel eternally that they can come home without any conditions, carefully crafted so that they can belong to the world as we all can. But I wanted to say one thing before I lose this. People always think about the diaspora as coming back to the continent. But the diaspora out there has a lot to offer the continent. There are markets out there, there are black economies out there, which open doors so you don't need a visa. So you don't need all those trade things that are needed for you to access the European or American markets. And there are bigger markets out there for African goods, not just by African people, but by the world. So we mustn't look at the diaspora as always coming home. It's a two-way relationship in every way, whether it's spiritual, whether it's economic. And that's how I've known my Africa. That's how I've known my Africa. I don't feel like I'm confined to a village in Kenya, which is where I'm from. I feel like a global citizen because of my African global identity. So I hope I've answered your question.
You have indeed, and I have another one for you. What is your take on having one currency in Africa? This is a question from Kennedy.
Okay, for me? Oh, I love the idea. Tomorrow. No, not tomorrow, today. We need this currency, like yesterday. But as you heard, it's not always straightforward because our countries are not all at the same level. So it has to be negotiated carefully with those conversions that the economists speak about, so that some countries which are very powerful and rich do not overpower the others. And I think it's starting to happen in ECOWAS here. I believe there's a common currency. I've used it. So I think it's happening, but it's to fast-track it with the African Continental Free Trade Area so that we're able to trade without, going through forexes. It's very expensive. We're losing so much money just exchanging money. So I personally want it to happen today.
Would you guys agree to have a one currency in Africa? Let's clap to that. What did you say? Yes, Kwame Nkrumah said it long ago. Totally agree. Let's grab the bull by the horn. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, please come up. I can see you right there with your hand up. Please come. There's a microphone right here. Please walk up to the microphone if you can.
Thank you, Mr. for the opportunity to voice out my question. My question goes to Mr. Bill. You made mention about looking at the link between as a whole. We always say we welcome our diaspora into our country, but how they find their way here into Ghana. I believe tourism is being powered by aviation. Aviation also powers tourism. What is the Ghana Tourism Authority to revive Ghana, and also looking at building a internal airline tourism here in our country?
The mic is breaking, so I know that the question is at KUSI,
Yes.
and it's about tourism. What is the question? Please say it again.
Linking tourism within the African and the diaspora as a whole. And we ask ourselves the question: how do our brothers find their way back home? Big up to the other African countries like Kenya, South Africa, and they have a vibrant airline that flies people into their country. Fortunately, we don't.
So our own airline?
Yes.
Okay.
Looking to revive former Ghana back to life, then we can boldly say bringing Accra.
Okay, I think I've got a gist of it. And it's basically about tourism. Looking at, obviously, Ghana doesn't have its own airline. How do we revive tourism?
All right, I think, thank you very much. Before I even go into the details, I believe we must be deliberate in some of the things that we do, both policy-wise and when it comes to implementation. So, for example, in Ghana, in terms of promotion of African clothes like kente and the rest, next year, as part of the policy statements from the ministry, we're looking to establish a national kente and smoke day. So let's imagine, even if you get 1% of the population to go along with this, that's about 300,000 kentes and smokes that will be bought that day. So some of the policy direction and initiatives may not necessarily move. Like when in 2000, somewhere in the 2000s, during President Kufuor's time, the Ministry of Trade said, let's wear Friday wear, which is the Ghana wear on Fridays. It really created a big market for small dressmakers, fashion designers, and all that. And now African print is in vogue. People feel proud to wear it. Same with air access. I mean, I know most African countries have signed an open skies agreement so we can fly. And I know that locally there's been some push by the Ministry of Transport to get a national carrier. I'm hoping that that discussion moves quickly because air access is critical. But within the sub-region, we've started a project called the West Africa Integrated Travel with Nigeria, Togo, and Benin. And the whole idea is that even if we don't have the airlines moving around, if we can clear up our borders, if you move from here to, let's say, from Accra to Lagos, if you took away all the borders of immigration, customs, drug control, immigration, customs, you probably can do it within 8 hours. But the last time we tried, it took us about 16 or so hours to get to Lagos because every mile you get a stop. And they stop you here, it's immigration. 200 meters away, you see customs, and they won't join immigration. They will wait for you to finish, go, and then they will stop you. Then the next one will be narcotic control board. They will also be there before you get to the next border. So those things can also change, and that's what we've been pushing with the West Africa Integrated Travel Project. We had the first event here in Ghana. We followed up in Nigeria. We've been to Togo. We've been to Benin, and we've engaged the various tourism authorities that let's make sure that the borders are open. People can move around and go in and out. It will not just attract regional travel, but even for international visitors coming in, if they feel that they can come to Nigeria and then jump on to Ghana, then that's something that's been. So yes, I'm an advocate that we should get a national carrier. Despite what a lot of people say, I feel that a national carrier is critical to our domestic, to our regional and international travel push. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Asante sana. My question goes to, I want to congratulate the East African countries for adopting or practicing Kiswahili as a language for the region. But if you want to adopt a common language for Africa, would that be feasible and possible? Because even in Ghana, I'm an Azima, the language of Kwame Nkrumah. I will not be happy that another language be chosen as an African language or national language. So can that be possible for Africans to have a common language? Thank you.
Prof.
I think you were just speaking English. And if we have learned English, it simply means that we can learn Kiswahili. I learned Kiswahili as an adult, shamefully, because I didn't learn it as a child. It was a negative thing to do. And I speak 7 languages. If we want to learn Kiswahili, and I'm urging everybody in this room to do Kiswahili 101. That's the basic Kiswahili. Just do it. Travel out of your language. I learned Italian as an adult at university. I have a degree in French and Italian, and they're not my mother tongues. They're very far from my mother tongue. If we want to do it, we can do it. Many of us in this room, just by a show of hands, how many people speak 1 language? How many people speak 2 languages? Don't be shy, put up your hand.
Put up your hand if you speak 2 languages.
2 languages. 3.
3.
4.
4.
5.
Wow.
7. And counting.
Right, there's 2 over there with 7.
Well done. So please, we've had this politics for a long time. Kiswahili is the language, morally, that's been adopted. And it comes from a very small community in East Africa, so it's not going to oppress anybody. And it's a growing language. It's got over 100 million speakers in Eastern Africa. South Africa has adopted it. They're teaching Kiswahili because it will fast-track trade. You know the barriers you're talking about? If you go and you say jambo at a border post, instead of explaining, I'm from Ghana, I speak Ga, or I'm speaking French or whatever, this will unite us. It's a currency. Language is a currency. And behind that currency are values of Africanness, which are expressed in our own common African language, which we can't express in English, which is a colonial language, and it still holds us back because those resonances of negativity, not because people want that, but they're embedded in our relationships with French and Portuguese and English. So I urge everyone, please, in this, you see KUSI, it means the wind or the trade winds. It's a wonderful word. Start by learning that word, KUSI. And then from there, learn how to say hello and goodbye. Like I come here and people say akwaba. If you come to East Africa, we will say to you karibu. And that way we will have fun. I'm a translator. And I know that we are losing our languages. And this is not a joke. Our languages are dying. So not preserving them and not having a common language, we are endangering ourselves. To go back to the question of security. Our languages can be our shield. They harbor in them knowledge about medicine, about trade, about healing, about spirituality, about plants, which are all around us. If I ask you about some of these plants, they don't exist in English or French, and they're growing outside. Once we lose that knowledge about our traditional and indigenous plants, we ourselves are dead. So it's really important not to play politics with this question of language. It's our life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next question.
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I have one question which is directed to Mr. Jakes, but before that, I would like to comment briefly on an issue the moderator raised in order to address issues of why we celebrate our musicians, and a specific reference was made to Wizkid filling the O2 and Shatawale's collaboration with the lady in US. I think that the issue specifically, should I capture?
No, go ahead.
All right.
Speak a bit louder for us.
All right, all right. So I said I will comment briefly on an issue you raised earlier with specific reference to Wizkid's filling the O2 Arena and Shatawale's collaboration with Jay-Z's wife. I think that the issue has to do with inferiority complex. The reason why our people would celebrate a collaboration of our artists with these global artists, if I should put it that way, is simply because of how we think. Because we look down upon our own people as Africans, we have failed to confront our challenges in a unified manner. And so we have failed in that manner to celebrate our own successes. So I am not surprised. When I heard there was a collaboration just like you raised, I'm not surprised. Because our artists here are capable of doing what we are celebrating. They can even do more than that. And so just in relation to that, why would you wait for a Grammy Award to celebrate the success and the capabilities of your own artist? In that vein, what do we do? Instead of waiting for a Grammy Award, why can't we have a unified African award that celebrates our musicians?
The Guba Awards.
That
Grow, Unite, Build Africa. Go ahead.
in that manner, if such an award is given to our own people, they don't wait for a foreign acknowledgement or recognition. That is just by the way. My question goes to Mr. Jake. Since he has been in the diaspora and has now come, I want to ask him, what have you observed about the youth here that you think is holding us back? And what is your recommendation compared to our counterpart abroad? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the question is quite layered, but we'll start from the point of mentioning Beyonce's name. Yeah, she's called Beyonce, Jay-Z's wife. Jay-Z and Beyonce, they are very, very important people to recognize. Now, secondly, with regard to saying that the basic problem is that we don't recognize, or there's a mindset problem with how we view our people, I don't necessarily agree with. Feel free to disagree with me, as I'm feeling free to disagree with you. I think there is something about dedication to the craft, excellence, and even market scale, market size, and what collaborations mean, right? So we celebrate that Beyonce has collaborated with Shatta Wale, not to say that Shatta Wale is not amazing in Ghana doing his thing, but because she opens up a market to Shatta Wale that earns Shatta Wale money so he can pay taxes here in Ghana, so he can help other Ghanaian artists, so that he can now post somebody else's work and it gets global reach. We cannot act like we do not want to scale. Everybody wants to scale past their current state. So it's not at all about us putting, well, yeah, we do put Beyonce on a pedestal, but us putting other people on a pedestal higher than our own people. I celebrate my culture as much as I celebrate other things globally, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. We need to think about these things economically as well as we think about them emotionally sometimes. And it's not that we have an inherent inferiority complex. I, for one, do not have one, and I hope you don't either. It is really about scaling and the value of collaborations and partnerships. Now, in terms of the youth in Ghana versus, I don't even think there's even a versus going on here. It's a lot of the time a resourcing issue. And beyond that, there's also, I feel like the reason young people, African young people, whether in the diaspora or locally, have not reached our full potential is really because there's a fragment there that needs to be healed with these diaspora affairs we talk about. It is Africans that will build Africa primarily, and then other people will come and collaborate with us as Beyonce. Well, Beyonce is even African, so let's put that aside. As probably a Caucasian or an Asian or somebody else will come and join us. Fundamentally, we need there's a need for investment in one another. So what we are lacking, what young people in Ghana here are lacking, is that collaboration with our global counterparts and investment made in us by our various powers that be. And this is why we are drawing attention to youth representation and youth at the table. The point of youth at the decision-making tables is so that we can advocate for our own. The reason I am so privileged and pleased to sit in the rooms I sit in and speak in the conversations I speak in, because sometimes I am the youngest person there and probably the only representative of young people as a decision is being made. This also happens to so many of my friends who also work even in the private sector, so it's not a public sector specific thing, it's a culture specific thing. I'm a Khan, and in Tree, there's a word for leaders. What do we call leaders in Tree? Leaders. Very good.
In penny four.
Very good. What does that suggest? In penny four, to those in over here that don't understand, means the elders. What does that suggest? So elders and leaders are one and the same in our consciousness. That is some of the issues. That's some of the issues that young people in this country are having. So we cannot see. We struggle to reconcile a young person being in a position of authority, probably even over an older person, because it just does not sit right with our consciousness of impenium forum. And those are some of the issues that we are having here. And that's sometimes what gives younger people in the diaspora a leg up, because that complex is not as steeped in the cultures in Europe and America, for example, as it is here. So those are some of the issues that we have here. I hope that answers your question.
Perfectly. I think you deserve a round of applause. Next question.
Okay, so my question is, so we do emphasize a lot.
Please speak up, please.
So my question is, we do emphasize a lot on discrimination going on between Africa and the rest of the world. So the question is, so what are we doing as Africans to eliminate any form of discrimination existing on the continent of Africa, especially with trade?
Especially in
trade. Yes. Thank you very much.
Anybody going to take that question?
I can take that question. Thank you for that question. The United Nations declared 2015 to 2024 as the International Decade for People of African Descent for precisely the same reasons that you're posing that question. The people of African descent have been victims of discrimination, whether it's racial discrimination, economic discrimination. Our history is littered with examples of exploitation. And so the United Nations wishes to draw attention to this issue and to reverse the hazardous impact that this has had over centuries. And of course, we've come into our own, and we're fighting and we're advocating for an equal standing on all platforms that we find, and in every room that we find ourselves in. It was said earlier that it's a shame that a continent of 1.1 billion doesn't have a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. That I agree with. It is abhorrent. It is impossible to condone beyond 2040, when 1 in 4 people are an African. And so with our increasing population and the demographic that appertains to that growth, we will hold the room and they will hear us when we ask for what is truly ours and has been ours for.
Last question.
My name is Uwapi Asan Kwashi Jinyame. On the podium of independence on 6 March 1957, Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah made a statement, several statements which are so profound. And he said, to paraphrase, that we are no more colonial, but free and independent people. That we are going to redefine our own African personality and identity. He also made a statement that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it's linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. What is the African identity? Thank you.
Wow. Identity. What is the African identity? To all my panelists, and then we'll wrap up.
The African identity is the skin, the skin you're in, the essence of your soul. You know, when the opening ceremony was happening and the drums were beating, tell me you didn't want to stand up and dance. That is your African identity. It is pervasive. You cannot contain the African identity, because Africa is home to the original man. All humanity emerged from Africa. And so the African identity is a global identity. And anyone who tells you different is advancing an agenda of superiority, which has no place. Because truly, we are all God's children. We are supposed to be here to enjoy the richest continent in the world. And so we're going to collaborate to help each other. And I agree that if oppression anywhere, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. So we cannot, and a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. We cannot be glad and make merry when our brothers are suffering across the world, in different regions of the world, where human trafficking, Africans remain the main victims of human trafficking in the Middle East. We cannot sit down and act like, you know, everything has been addressed. We have to change that. And in closing, I wish to thank our brethren in the Caribbean. I wish to thank Prime Minister Mia Mottley and Andrew Holness and Keith Rowley of the Caribbean, because these are latter-day leaders, Pan-Africanists, who wish to keep the movement alive, as did their forefathers and ancestors in the 1900s, Henry Sylvester Williams, George Padmore, W.E. Du Bois, who came here. They lived and decided to die in Ghana because they were home at last. And so the African identity is what you see in the mirror and is what you see all around you, and you should be proud every single day for the rest of your life that you are an African. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll have everybody say their last few words and mention about the African identity.
Well, so I'm a historian and have a master's in African studies, so I look at things quite historically. And I would say the African identity, while we can't contain it and define it, in my opinion, because it's full of so many different elements, I would filter it through this lens of anything that colonialism threatened to destroy, that we, through our power now on the continent, are taking back and rebuilding. Those are the things, those are elements that make up the African identity. And so whenever you're questioning that, always ask yourself, is this something that colonialism would rather I did not have? And then build upon that, because that's exactly is the essence of your African identity.
Thank you, Jake. Prof?
Yes, I really like that red dress, because, you know, culture is created. We can create culture. This festival didn't exist a few years ago. We can create culture like we can create that dress. We can make it as beautiful as we wish, or as ugly as we wish. It's up to us. It's not, and we can draw from our history. We can draw from our creatives. We can wish for as much as we want to wish. I'm wearing this beautiful necklace, which I bought in the Maasai market in Nairobi. It didn't exist before for me to wear. You see, culture is created. We've seen what happened in the United States of America, the land of freedom. Just like that, you can create cultures of negativity and of hostility. That's why I talked about values. And that's why I talked about Kwanzaa. For a while, I ignored this Kwanzaa. I thought it belonged to African Americans. But we need to pay attention to those 7 pillars of what Kwanzaa means. It comes from Africa. That's why I talked about Ubuntu. And with Ubuntu, you can make a beautiful dress like that one. It didn't exist before we came. If you didn't buy it, if the person outside there didn't sew it, if the person didn't wake up to come and sell it to us, we wouldn't be looking at this beautiful red dress. You can have as much as you wish to have. And it's for us. As I said, now is tomorrow. And we have a very rich history. You've seen we're returning our artifacts. We are the richest continent. Imagine those beautiful things which were stolen from our continent. We have to heal ourselves, but beyond healing ourselves, in our economies, in our culture, in our everyday life with each other, we have to be respectful and loving of ourselves. So I think today is International Human Rights Day. So as we celebrate International Human Rights Day, we must remember our humanity and its potential to create, to imagine. If you want to imagine a little bit, that's what you get. If you want to imagine, you know, that country, what is it called? Arab Emirates. It was a desert not long ago. United Arab Emirates. They now have skyscrapers touching the sky. A few years ago, they were riding on donkeys with no water, no nothing. They dreamt this. They have touched Mars. In no time, they have touched Mars. We have everything here, under the ground, on the land, in the sky. We have everything, everything, everything that a human being could want. It's up to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. And today is also a day of orange by the UN. It's the day of, raising awareness for gender violence against women. So we acknowledge that day today, as well as Human Rights Day as well. So KUSI.
What was the question again?
African identity, and you're wrapping up.
All right, I think I'll wrap up because I don't know what African identity is, but I know that it finds expression in the unity of the African people. So we need to be united, we need to build bridges, we need that can-do spirit that says we can do it, like Prof just said. And so that for me is what I would say as African identity. So if we take it from where our first president talked about, the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked to the total liberation of the African continent. One country cannot do it all. We need each other. We need to open our doors. We need to connect. We need to trade amongst ourselves. It's been too late. It kept too long for an agreement like the AFTA agreement to come into being. We need a free continent where if you're in Ghana, you can just pick your passport and go to Kenya. We know that is already there. But to other countries, Uganda, South Africa, South Africans can pick their passport and come here. Those are the things that I will say the identity of Africa will find expression in. But to wrap up, I think it's been a wonderful panel. I believe that the conversations will continue. We thank the Nation Media Group once again for choosing Ghana to host this event. I believe that by far, the conversations that I've started will continue even after today. And then together, we can start seeing that build-up that we need for the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to my panelists. And to the audience, I want you to repeat after me. I am African and I am proud.
And I am proud.
Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Lady Denta Amoateng, everybody. A woman who almost single-handedly put Ghana on a global map, and a woman who proudly looked into the face of many diasporans and said, I'm taking you back to Ghana, I'm taking you back home, and if you regret any minute of it, I will give you back your money for your ticket. Since then, tens and thousands more have come. So Denta, we thank you for that. And we're going to ask that you be upstanding for a photo opportunity, please. Mr. Photographer, kindly do take that very important picture for us. And this is the power of KUSI Ideas Festival, a bringing together of individuals who, in their own very extraordinary way, have put the continent of Africa out there, are doing it, are inviting more of our brothers and sisters to come back to build. Without an event like this, we are all pretty much scattered, and what KUSI really does is it brings us from all corners of the world into one place at any given point in time, not just to share and have a conversation, but to take from here and also activate. So thank you very much to our panelists for this extraordinary opportunity to share wisdom, experience, and goodness knows everything else under the sun that will make our Africanness even more bold as we step out there. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the fourth and the last panel of the day. And this panel really does talk about the biggest elephant in every single room around the world, vaccination. Vaccination, and I think Lady Amoateng also touched on that. I also just saw the press release that any Ghanaian that is coming back home will be vaccinated. That and more. So vaccination, the killer app that will get Africa out of crises. What does it look like? Who is it for? What is it intended for? And how do we benefit? The moderator for this panel is a senior news anchor, NTV Kenya, and I'm inviting her up in 2 minutes. But before then, here's a short video we would like you to take a look at.
We are Nation, Africa's independent media brand. We are committed to empowering all Africans, from the young to the old, from the